All right, we're now just 2 days away from what U.S. President Donald Trump is calling Liberation Day. And today, reporters asked Trump what the tariffs he's promising are going to look like.
Well, you're going to see in 2 days, which is maybe tomorrow night or probably Wednesday, you're going to see. And they're reciprocal. So whatever they charge us, we charge them, but we're being nicer than they were. We have a lot of countries, friend and foe. I always say friend and foe, but the friend in many cases is worse than the foe.
So on April 2nd, Trump is promising those reciprocal tariffs as well as sector-specific tariffs that may include Canadian dairy. 25% auto tariffs are set for 12:01 a.m. the next morning. But in advance of all of that, a group of U.S. senators are taking up Canada's cause. Democratic Senator Tim Kaine wrote this op-ed last week saying he's forcing a vote to challenge Trump's tariffs on Canada, and that vote is expected tomorrow. So, has Trump's grip on the Senate and House loosened enough for lawmakers to push back? Well, Dave Weigel is a politics reporter at Semaphore and the author of Semaphore's Americana newsletter. He joins us now. Dave, it's good to see you again. Thanks for being here, sir.
It's good to see you. Thank you.
All right, a lot of people in Canada would know Tim Kaine as Hillary Clinton's running mate back in the day. How is he arguing that Trump is abusing, how is he making this argument that Trump is abusing emergency powers to put these tariffs in place?
Well, you just said it. The executive branch has these powers. Actually, Republicans made sure he would by including language in their spending bill last month that took away the power of Congress to countermand this. And Kaine is saying the obvious and putting Democrats on record, because I think that's really the point of this, Democrats on record that they are not supporting this willy-nilly threatening of tariffs, this uncertainty created, which I think now, not so much in January when investors were looking at Trump and thinking this might be like the first term. Now they are looking at this policy and saying this is so haphazard and so random that we're struggling to make long-term investments. What Kaine's doing is saying we can't really stop this, but we're going to say that we Democrats would like to.
Okay, so the Republicans have the majority in the Senate, right? They've got 53 of the 100 seats. But I've seen Rand Paul doing interviews. He does not like these tariffs for very different reasons than probably why Tim Kaine doesn't like them. Any chance he votes with the Republicans? Any chance, or sorry, with the Democrats? Any chance there's enough of people from the Republican side who are just so frustrated with this that they might vote in favor?
Well, you would need 13 of them to do that, and you would need a couple of Republicans to agree to even bring this vote up. You'd need John Thune, the majority leader, to do that. Unclear that they will. Paul has libertarian philosophical opposition to tariffs. He's joined by one libertarian in the House, Tom Massey. Both are Republicans, but they have libertarian philosophies. They have been consistent. Other Republicans have been inconsistent if you compare what they used to say about protectionism before Trump and what they say now. And this has been a pattern, not to be nihilistic or say that you can predict everything, but a Republican's statements about policies before Trump got elected are not really operable. They are much more akin to defend whatever Trump is doing and retroactively say they're wrong about it. They're not really going on record when given the chance to oppose what Trump is doing.
Okay, so I just want to go back to something you said in your answer. You said it would take 13 Republicans to defect. So it's not a simple majority in a vote like this. They need to get, what, a 60-vote supermajority sort of thing because it's overturning something? Is that how it works here?
Yes, there's very little the Senate does with 50 votes or 51 votes if the vice president shows up to break a tie. Very, very little. This has been the killer app, really, of the first 2 months of Trump is that things have gotten much easier in the House and Senate because DOJ is, I would say, taking power from the legislative branch willingly from Republicans and making what might be a politically hard choice, let's say shutting down USAID, shutting down the Institute of Peace, just doing it and having Republicans say, well, when the time comes, we might cut that funding ourselves. So this is everything else that is important that is long-term would require a supermajority to break a filibuster. And yes, unlikely that anything Democrats are doing would get that done. The only thing that broke the filibuster in this new Senate, not broke it, got past a filibuster was the Lake and Riley Act, an immigration bill that a lot of Democrats signed on to. They have been a lot more worried, and polling will back this up. Democrats have been a lot more worried about Trump's advantage on immigration, the tolerance the country has for extreme measures to deport people in the country illegally, to close down asylum claims. They've been willing to go along with that. On economics, on what he is doing with trade, they're much more comfortable. And they're polling again. I'm not portraying Democrats as profiles and courage. They're looking at something that most of the country is very worried about, and signing on with those voters, with the 55-60% of voters who say, we're not sure what this economic policy is. How is this going to lower our prices?
Okay, so we maybe shouldn't expect much success out of the Senate. I wonder if things might change a bit in the House of Representatives, because there are these two special elections in Florida coming up, the Mike Waltz and Matt Gaetz seats, I believe they are. And also we saw President Trump pull back Elise Stefanik's nomination for UN ambassador, I think over concern that they might lose her congressional seat should it be put to a special election. What does that tell us about Trump's grip on the House of Representatives? Because a lot of the executive order stuff he's doing is kind of mowing their grass. Is he worried about the situation there?
He was more worried than Democrats thought he was. If you look at what Trump said on Truth Social, then what he said reporters asked him, he rambled a bit about the importance of this Elise Stefanik seat, but she represents a seat, North Country, New York. It's really not that far from Montreal, that had been moving to the right, went for Trump by 20 points. That Democrats and Republicans had polling that right now, if the election was held, it wouldn't be held until later in the year if she vacated that it was going to be a single-digit race. And
Right.
Trump was admitting in his statements that he didn't want the uncertainty of potentially losing one of these seats. When you talk about those Florida races, Republicans have scrambled and spent a lot of money, $4 million, with the last I saw, to defend a seat that Trump won by 30 points. That has a lot to do. There are two of these seats in Florida. One is the Gaetz seat, which is fairly safe. They have a good Republican candidate who's been elected to statewide office. The other seat, the Walz seat, they happen to have a lackluster Republican candidate, a state senator who's done very little campaigning, raised very little money, and was trying to coast into the seat without much work. They've had to bail him out, and not because of fear that they might lose this, but in a black swan case where no Republicans showed up, they might lose it. But the early voting, because Florida has lots of early voting has showed Democrats turning out, Republicans turning out weakly. And Trump reacted with a much more panicky sentiment than most Republicans would go on the record and react with. He was looking at that map and saying that the party might be fumbling some key things and might be losing power in the House. I need to adjust to that.
So Dave, I'm going to end with maybe an impossible question of trying to get you to read Donald Trump's mind and predict what might happen. But, you know, he's gone from, we've been looking ahead to April 2nd as kind of like an economic Armageddon up here, but now Liberation Day seems to be softening, at least in what the president is saying, certainly after his conversation with Mark Carney last week. I mean, what's your sense of how the shifting, the stock markets, and everything is changing his view in advance of whatever he announces on Wednesday?
Well, like I was saying, there have been mixed messaging from the administration about how seriously to take this. Republicans have been moving in lockstep with Trump's orders. If he's threatening a tariff, it's brilliant. If he pulls it back, it's the art of the deal, and also brilliant. And we are reaching a point, there have been billions of dollars lost by investors who are not quite sure how to plan exactly for what is happening. That's what's changed things. So how is it being received in America? You have started to see chatter about people saying, should I buy my car now? I read a story that the tariffs might affect how much my car is going to cost. Trump being pretty blasé about that. It is starting to have an impact in the States. And what could Trump do to end that uncertainty? It would be, I suppose, to not threaten these tariffs and not pull them back, to have more clarity about what might happen. The element of surprise that he's trying to use here, which is analogous to what he does in a lot of foreign policy, analogous to how he talks about Iran and its nuclear program, or how he talks about Israel and what to do with Gaza. It worries a very different set of people here. And without being too kind to these people who are worried, there were just a lot of donors and investors who thought Trump blusters a lot, but this term is going to be like the first term when Steve Mnuchin was at the Treasury and had a steady hand and nothing that wild could happen. This term, with lots of warning, every reporter covered this, Trump is unencumbered. Trump has people who back up what he says and will defend whatever he wants to do. In that environment, he's been a lot more chaotic in ways that people cannot make long-term plans to fix.
Dave Weigel with Semaphore, always appreciate the analysis. Thanks for being here, sir.
Thank you.